Hey guys, Paul here from familywheels.ca. Thanks for tuning in to another car review for your growing family. Today we're looking at the smallest, most efficient, and most affordable in the Lexus line. It's the CT 200H. Now this car has been around with the company since 2011, and for the 2016 model year, really not much has changed. A couple cosmetic things and some packages that you can add on, but we're not going to see a complete redesign until 2017. That's when a new model is expected to come out. Now I say most affordable in the Lexus line, but that still means that it's a luxury vehicle. So it's meant to compete with the likes of the Audi A3, the Mercedes CLA, and it's going to start at around $31,000. Now if you look, I mean, it's a slick looking car. It's sporty, it's low to the ground, it's got some great lines on it, but one of the big beefs that people have is that it shares the same hybrid system as the Toyota Prius. So not much of a performer. We'll get to that a little bit down the road here. But I also wanted to put it through some of our standardized tests, see how it shakes out there, see if it'll work for family life. So stick around, we'll see how the CT 200H stacks up. You want to see the side view back? Alright, so let's address the elephant in the room right off the hop here, because when I was doing my research on this car, its performance got absolutely hammered. Now maybe because my expectations were so low, and because I was driving the Prius C a couple of weeks ago on the program, which was an absolute dog, just a really uninspiring car to drive, my hopes weren't particularly high for the CT 200H. But when I got behind the wheel of it, I was actually pleasantly surprised. It's lower to the ground. This is the F Sport package that I'm in here today, so it means that its suspension is sport tuned a little bit. You're not going to break any records going on around a track, but it's not bad. And the fact is, for people who are looking for a high-end sports car, they're not going to look to this car anyway because it's a hybrid and it's not going to blow you out of the water in that regard. But a little story here, my wife wanted the car seat out of this car, and I was on my way to work this morning. I look in the back seat, I'm already late for work, and guess what? Car seat's sitting back there. So I popped it into sport mode, which isn't going to do you any real favors for fuel economy, and just hammered my way home. And it was actually a really good car, particularly in the corners. It did just fine. One thing you'll notice with it is that the transmission revs rather high. It's a pretty noisy car to drive around in. It's also fairly noisy just because of general wind noise. But if you're driving up a hill at highway speed, that sort of thing, that transmission is going to get maybe a little bit tiresome for you. Some people love the sound of it, not so much for me. Now, as I mentioned, the tester I've got here has the F Sport package in it. That's a $6,200 option, and you can also go to a second tier of the F Sport line, which will give you even more features for more money, of course. It's going to give you things like that sportier ride, a sunroof, but it's also including things that I really think should be standard on a Lexus. Things like a rear backup camera, navigation, LED headlamps. I'm sorry, but that's just the kind of thing that I really thought would come as standard with this car. But when you step into this car, there are a lot of high-end materials that you'll find in the interior. Some nice soft touch surfaces, the leather feels very smooth and supple, the seats are incredibly comfortable. This is a bit of a weird one, but both my wife and I commented on this. The headrests are perhaps the most comfortable I've ever felt in my life before. They're incredible. It's like you're putting your head on a down pillow. Weird, I know, but if you take one for a test drive, try it. You'll see what I'm talking about. There are some hard touch, hard surface plastics here in places that do seem a little bit out of place, but for the most part, pretty good. I don't particularly like the layout of the cockpit in this car though. It looks cool, it looks like a fighter jet when you're in here with this center console, but it's really cluttered and it's difficult to find what it is that I'm looking for, particularly in the climate control panel here. And then if we look down here at where the seat warmers are, for example, these buttons look like the sort of thing that should be on a ghetto blaster that I had in grade 5, not in a Lexus. I feel like I should be adjusting the treble and the bass for my my old Crisscross albums. And then directly in front of me here on the instrument gauge, you'll see that I've got this pixelated graphic of where the power is going in this car, whether I'm using more hybrid system or traditional gasoline engine. It's the kind of thing that I would have been impressed with in a 1990s era hybrid, but certainly not a 2016 Lexus. Let's look at some of the ins and outs now on the CT200H and see how it might fare for you and your family, and how some of our standardized tests came through as well. First up, I wanted to start back here in the rear seat because I've adjusted my driver's seat to just the way that I like it. I'm 6'2", and you can see that it has done me no favors for legroom back here. You wouldn't want to have adults or bigger, older children back here for much more than just a quick trip around town. My headroom's pretty limited as well. These leather seats are firm and supportive and comfortable, but one of the things that I was surprised by, and a couple of friends who were sitting in the back seat the other day noticed as well, is that even though this is a luxury product, it is a Lexus, there isn't a cup holder to be seen in the back seat. Little thing, but certainly something that people keep an eye out for. Now we've got our rear-facing child seat in place too. I'm going to show you in a couple of minutes what that will do for front passenger comfort. But first, let's take a look at trunk space. And here's something else that seemed like a little bit of a surprise to me. Again, a Lexus branded vehicle, but it doesn't have an auto lift rear tailgate. You have to manually do that. And this is a lower end Lexus, but that was still a bit of a surprise to me. Let's have a look at our standardized trunk test. We've got our standard amount of gear here, a backpack, couple bags of groceries, fold-up stroller, a ball, and a diaper bag, and you can see that it fits in there just fine with a little bit of room to spare, even though this is a small vehicle. And that's largely because Lexus hasn't fallen victim to what a lot of companies are doing right now, and that's sloping the trunk off at the back end. It looks cool, but it doesn't do a lot for rear storage capacity. Our Volvo's got that as well over there, and you can see that that squared off back gives us tons of storage capacity in the back, and I like that. So as I mentioned, the rear-facing child seat is in place now in that back seat, and what's that doing for front passenger comfort? Not as bad as I thought it might be. We've got just over 10 inches of legroom to play with. That's about Honda Fit kind of category of legroom when I did this test on the Fit a couple of months ago. And I'm a bit squashed up here, but for a quick drive around town, my legroom is just about adequate and my headroom's the same. So not bad. And now finally, let's put our yogurt test in action here. What is this yogurt going to do to these seats? You can see that they've actually got a little bit of a texture on the leather here. And I don't think that that's going to be a problem for cleanups, but let's take a look. No, yeah, not a problem. This leather cleans up really nicely, and these are very comfortable seats as well, very firm and supportive. Here's something that I did note that I wanted to show to you guys, and that's that when you have your doors open at a curb, there's actually not much play there at all. So if you've got high curbs in your neighborhood, you might be constantly dinging the doors as you open and close them. That's just because this car is a fair bit lower than, you know, other station wagons, perhaps with all-wheel drive, that are meant to be a little bit more, you know, off-roady. This is meant to be a bit of a sportier car, and it means that the ground clearance isn't quite as much. So I've had this car for almost 2 weeks now. I've put over 500 kilometers on it, and I have to say that I think the reviews about this car and its performance are a little bit harsh. Sure, it's not the high-end sports wagon that you're going to find from the likes of Audi and BMW and Mercedes, but this is a hybrid, and you've got to know that going in. And I think that for a car that's based on the Toyota Corolla and RAV4 platform with a hybrid engine in it, that Lexus has actually managed to milk a fair bit of performance out of this little car. And you can't argue with the 5.5 liters per 100 kilometers that I've managed to average in those 500 kilometers that I've driven in it. Where I think this car does fall short is in its layout and what you get for your price. It just feels like it's falling short on what should be a fairly high-end product. If Lexus wants people to get into this and use it as the gateway drug into the brand, it's not going to blow their socks off, and it's not going to impress them as much as I think Lexus really should. I'm curious to see where this car goes for its redesign in 2017. It's got a lot of potential. It's a cool idea, but it is falling just a little bit short in my mind. Next week on the program, we're looking at the Fiat 500X. This is the four-door, more sort of off-roady offering from Fiat. I drove around one of their smaller hatchbacks through Europe a few years ago on our honeymoon, and that car put a smile on my face the whole time we were out. And we'll see if that 500X is just as smile-inducing. That's in about 7 days on the program. Until then, make sure to subscribe, and thanks for watching.